Welcome back to the Red Dice Diaries, and this is my 24th RPGaDay 2015 video. Now the 24th question is, what is your favourite house rule? And I'll be honest, I had to think fairly long and hard about this one, since I don't tend to use an awful lot of house rules in my games. However, one house rule that I've used that I've found really useful was one that I nicked or stole, and I'm a great fan of taking ideas from other GMs that I've seen them use. I personally like it when people take ideas from me. I think it's the highest form of flattery. And the idea in question, the house rule in question, is one that I saw demonstrated at the UK Games Expo, and it was used for a number of World of Darkness games that I played in. Now the World of Darkness setting is a very interesting one. You can find out lots about it on the net. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty details of the World of Darkness here. However, just to let people know, I'm talking about the new World of Darkness, although I think this house rule could work perfectly well for the old World of Darkness, or the core World of Darkness, whatever they're calling it now. And the fact is that whilst the World of Darkness games are very well written, the rules are very good for campaign play, certainly, a lot of the powers can be a little bit weird or a little bit esoteric to get your head around, remembering what does exactly what and what roles you have to make for your different powers, whether they're vampiric disciplines, werewolf gifts, mage, spells, whatever. It can be a little bit difficult to remember them, unless you write them all down on your character sheet, taking up loads of space, or you bookmark them or laboriously flip through in a session, which can slow down play an awful lot. Now the house rule that I saw being used at the UK Games Expo was that the GM, rather than giving us a big list of powers, effectively gave us the name of the power. So for instance, you might have a werewolf gift connect with fire. Now you have a number of dots, normally 1 to 5, in that power, and instead of having a separate ability at each stage, what happens is, if you say that you want to use your firepower to do something, as long as it's thematically linked with fire, so throwing a fireball, starting a fire, whatever, then all you do is you take a characteristic and a skill, as you would do normally when you're forming a dice pool for a World of Darkness dice roll, and then you add a number of dice in addition to those two stats equal to the number of dots or points you have in that particular power. And depending on how many successes you get determines whether the effect succeeds or not. So in effect, what you're doing is you're taking this vast gamut of different weird and wacky abilities, and you're fitting them into a looser narrative style using the existing mechanic that's already tried and tested for the various World of Darkness systems. Now this might sound a little bit sort of wishy-washy at the start, because obviously you're effectively saying, wow, you can do anything as long as you justify it in terms of the theme of your power. And yes, I suppose that's true. However, doing that actually gives the players a great deal more freedom with what they can do with their powers. Now, as a GM, of course, you still hold the right to say, no, that's not really appropriate, or saying, yes, you can do that, which is what I prefer to do, but it's going to be very difficult, and setting the difficulty higher. Of course you can do that. However, you'll be surprised at the inventive ways that players can find to use their powers. And it does work really well for one-off games, since it means that people don't have to take in these vast array of different rules and different powers. They can just look at the name of it, get an idea of it, and immediately start running with it and jumping into the game, which is especially handy if you're coming up with pre-gen characters for like a one-off session or something. And in fact, this is a system I used when I ran a one-off Changeling the Lost game, which you can see an actual play of by clicking there, and it worked really well. However, it's a system that only really works if you've got players who are fairly inventive and they're quite willing to run with that. If you've got players who are maybe not as proficient at coming up with what they want to do with their powers on the fly and prefer a more sort of static effect, then you might be better off sticking with the original sort of defined powers. However, there's nothing to actually stop you despite the fact that you're doing things in a bit more freestyle way, making a few suggestions as to what players can do with their particular powers. So that's a house rule that I've used a lot and I've found quite effective. It's a rule for taking the powers and the vast panoply of different supernatural abilities that are used in World of Darkness games, making them a bit more freeform and tacking them onto the existing dice pool mechanic that's already been tried and tested in World of Darkness. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. You'll consider clicking on the red dice up there to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in my next RPG a Day video. Take care.